Let's just say your heart broke. When you actually feel it, it's like, whoa, I'm alive. Like, I feel love. Like, how beautiful that I opened my heart to feel love. Like, those are the moments that we feel alive. Like, if you feel heartbreak, I just want to congratulate you and acknowledge you for letting yourself love. Because you can't feel heartbreak without feeling love. People who've never loved never feel heartbreak. So if your heart is broken, congratulations, honey, you are loving. And if your heart is breaking every day for what's happening in the world right now, congratulations, you are alive. You are alive. Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Yeah. Welcome back to the High Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spiritual concepts and make them grounded, relatable, accessible, and fun. So this is like part 3, but welcome wherever you are. You didn't need to watch the other parts to drop into this one of the experience and lessons that I learned from sitting with plant medicine. So a few weeks ago, I was in Peru where I sat with Grandmother Ayahuasca and Grandfather San Pedro, as well as sitting in Temazcal and Despacho and lots of different ritual and ceremony of indigenous cultures. And it was probably the most profound spiritual experience of my life. And I have been on the spiritual journey for 14 plus years now. And wow, nothing illuminates your shadows and your ancestral lineage and patterns and childhood in the way that plant medicine did for me personally. So I will link below the 2 other episodes I did. The first episode was specifically about my experience with Mother Ayahuasca. The reason why I'm calling it Mother is because it is a feminine grandmother-like energy. So it's a term of reverence for this medicine. So I will link that below, as well as a part 2 that was really a lot of the relationship lessons that I learned from that and what it told me around ways that I and all of us wear masks and how these masks and these roles that we're playing, whether it's wearing makeup or only portraying a certain parts of ourselves, actually holds us back from having the real relationships that we are desiring, both friendship and romantically. So I'll link those 2 below. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format, so if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. So in this one, and by the way, I could do like a whole series. I could talk about this forever. I received so much from it, but I wanted to go into my San Pedro experience, which is a different form of medicine. It's a cactus medicine, it's grandfather energy. And I also wanted to talk about some things I've touched upon before, and we'll kind of let spirit guide us. Maybe this is going to need to be 10 more episodes, but on the topic of aloneness and why it's at the core root of why we experience issues today around the word should and what the medicine told me that I was doing to my consciousness, and just the ancestral lineage component and intergenerational trauma. There is so much here. So welcome. Let's get in. So let's just start with the experience, because I know a lot of people are really curious, like what is it actually like what is San Pedro? So San Pedro, Huachuma is the actual indigenous term, so I'm going to call it Huachuma, is a cactus. So ayahuasca is a vine, whereas, and a combination of 2, whereas Huachuma is a cactus. And it has a more, when they say grandfather energy, so I was expecting it to be like super masculine, and I sat in 2 ceremonies, and I'll share with you what that means. But it wasn't that for me, but it was a lot more like, to me, it was like the family constellation plant. Like it really zoomed me out and allowed me to see like the relationship of my family unit. So my mom, my dad, my brother, myself, the dynamics between us, but then zoom out further into my grandparents and my grandparents' relationship with their children and my lineage and the country that my family comes from and the wars that they experienced. And it really zooms you out. So it allows you to see the patterns of things, which is essential for our healing. Like the healing journey is really the ancestral journey, because the problems that you have today, they did not start with you. They're passed down to you, 90% of them. And so without really knowing about our ancestors, we really aren't able to get to the root of a lot of these situations that we find ourselves in time and time again. So I would say if you've heard of family constellations work, it is like this plant puts you into that consciousness in the deepest way. So it's the sticky liquid. And to me, it actually tasted horrific. The ayahuasca was not so bad for me. I know a lot of people like hate the taste of ayahuasca. It really was not bad. I can't even really remember what it tasted like. I drank that full cup and I was actually totally fine. Whereas the Huachuma was like very sticky. So it was almost like there were like little like phlegmy things in it. It was like, blah. So that was actually a lot harder for me personally, though I have friends who were in the ceremonies and for them it was the opposite. So I did not know what to expect. I have seen a wide array of experiences with it, but I came humbly. I came, in reverence and of service. And it was really important for me to sit in Huachuma with a Huachumero, which is a facilitator of this, a shaman of this work who was from the land. So he was from Peru and has been working with this plant like as his primary focus of his life for like over 10 years. And really is the plant at this point. His name is Miguel. And so I sat with him and wanted to do it in the Sacred Valley of Peru where the Huachuma naturally grows. It's all over. So it's like having the plant where it is home. And I feel that's very important. It's not necessary, but you're just going to have a much deeper experience with the plant when you're having it in its home versus extracting it and taking it somewhere else, right? Because wherever you take plant medicines, you're also like really opening yourself up to the consciousness of that place. So when I first sat with plant medicine in LA, it was a little bit chaotic because LA's a little bit chaotic. Whereas doing it in Sacred Valley, for me, it was like super deep and potent because there's also like, when we went out, so with San Pedro, the way that you traditionally do it is hiking. So we were every day, 12 hours, picked up at 7 a.m. and taking it on the trail and hiking. The first ceremony was up a very steep mountain. And so we did our ritual. Miguel guided us, called in the 4 directions. We really sat in reverence and intention. We each, sang a song to the medicine or a song that we were calling in an energy. And it could be anything. It could be, a medicine song. It could be like, I love you, you love me. And so my intention for all 3 of these ceremonies was really to see anything that was holding me back from true love and really face it all. Anything that I am not seeing. I've done so much deep shadow work and really excavating into my subconscious through, many modalities and just being with myself and my own embodiment. So I was really just like curious, like, what else am I not seeing? And so I was willing to see it all. And I was not afraid of it getting dark or scary or sad or anything, and I've never been at a point in my life to really be able to like be there of just like whatever it is, if it's going through my grandmother's child marriages, if it's going through, witnessing my ex cheating on me, whatever the thing was, I will face it. So I had no idea what to expect. And, the song that I sang was, I don't know how you do what you do. I'm so in love with you. It just keeps getting better. Amazed by Lone Star. Like, if I ever get married again, that's going to be my wedding song. And I hope to like build the confidence one day to like sing it to my future husband. So that was my song. And so we begin the hike and it was just, for me, it just started tears. Like, so this deep like the last of the sadness of my heartbreak that, I'd done a lot of work, even forgiven him, but there was still like this layer of sadness of like, it was a very old sadness, like a generational, like feeling of like abandonment, and all the women in my family who have been abandoned by men in different ways, whether it was like a literal abandonment or emotional abandonment. And that was the first thing that really came through for me. And the ayahuasca, like I shared on that episode, it took like 2 hours for it to hit. I wasn't even sure what was happening. Then all of a sudden, I'm like singing amazing melodies and it turned into like a hip hopper in my mind. And I'm like, whoa, and it was like a show. It was a musical. Whereas this was not that. It's much more gentle. So again, you're hiking. You could not hike with ayahuasca, at least a full dose. Whereas the full dose, you are hiking. So you're in this reality and everything looks the same. It's a little bit more vivid. You do see a little bit more of like, if you've ever taken mushrooms before, but mushrooms are even more visual than this. This is like, only really if you're looking for it, if you really look and you pay attention, you can really see the leaves breathe and, the color and things like that. But if you're looking for it, if not, you're just here in this reality, you can completely have a conversation with someone. So it's a lot more subtle than ayahuasca is. And so I'm hiking, I'm feeling this sadness. And then it shows me like my family, and it showed me how in my family, it was always like 2 against 1. So it was like my mom being like, me and your dad think this about you. But then it would also show me how sometimes it would be like me and my dad siding against my mom, or it would be me and my brother against our parents, or my mom and my brother against me or him, or it was like always like whatever your problem was with someone, you found someone else that agreed with you. And then you like bonded over this shared annoyance together against this other person. And it showed me that. And I was just like, I do not want to take that on. Like, I don't want to recreate that at all. It's war consciousness. It's us against you. We know better. And even if it's coming from a place of love, like it was always like, we know better, like we've psychoanalyzed you. And what we've noticed about you is this. And it's like, the truth is no one freaking knows anyone else's path. And to be like, we think that you should be doing this. Note the word should. Is completely negating the differences in our life paths, karmas, past lives, astrology, like all of the different factors that make all of us so unique, let alone personalities and life experiences and dharmas, and the list goes on. So it really made me aware of this war consciousness in my family, and then zoomed me out to the war that happened between Iran and Iraq. That is the reason why my family fled Iran. And, over 1 million Iranians were killed and bombs were going off. And that's what my mom had to like literally go to school hearing, and what that does to someone's consciousness, and all of the wars that have happened, not in the Middle East, that's where my family's from, but like all around the world, war consciousness and how this war consciousness, and I'm curious, I want you to pause where your family is from. Was there ever a war? Do you see yourself one day starting a podcast, writing books, speaking on stages, sharing your message with the world? But the thing is, you are afraid that you're not a good enough speaker yet. Maybe you're inspired by people like me and Gabby Bernstein, and you have it within yourself too, but you just don't know where to start. Well, I have gotten this question so many times, and this is why I've created my Speak with Soul 21-day method. This guides you from awkward to confident speaker in just 3 weeks' time. I guide you through daily prompts, practices, and share all of the wisdom that I have learned as a professional speaker, podcaster, author, and someone who literally makes a living sharing my voice as well as through music, and how you can too in your own unique way. So the testimonials from Speak with Soul are insane. I have seen people literally be hired to host their own radio shows. Hundreds of people start their own podcasts, create YouTube channels, IG live series, get book deals, the list goes on. So whether you want to professionally share your voice or just get better in conversation and connection and just feel more confident in what you say and not feel like you're so in your head, and release any fears or hesitations you have around the way that your voice sounds and its pitch, well, this course covers all of it. So it's just 10-minute daily videos for 21 days that I promise you, if you follow this process, you will be a completely other person on the other side. Because the truth is, when is the last time you spent any time on your speaking? For most of us, it was like maybe an awkward speech in high school and we never touched it again. So speaking is the way that we communicate with the world. It's the most important thing we can do. It's the way that we get our message across. And I know if you're listening to this podcast, you have a really important message to share because regular people don't listen to this podcast. So if you're feeling the call, come join me in Speak with Soul. I have a special 25% off discount for you listed below. So head over to the show notes or over to speakwithsoulcourse.com. That's speakwithsoulcourse.com to receive the 25% off right now. And you can also find that link in the show notes. I'm so excited to hopefully be on your podcast. So if your family is from anywhere in Central America, there are many civil wars there. If your family's from anywhere in Africa, many wars there. If your family's from the Middle East, ongoing wars there. If your family's even many parts of Asia, there are wars in all of them except Thailand. So look at these wars. It might not have been your parents, it might have been your grandparents, might have been your great-grandparents. Was there a famine that happened? Was there a big natural disaster that happened? Was there a revolution that happened? Was there, huge amounts of poverty, famines? So start to learn about these things in your lineage because they affect you and they're in your consciousness. And not to be like, oh, now we're screwed, but we just have to be aware of how these things show up in different ways. So if our family came from war, that war consciousness is going to be in your family and how you were raised. So we have to notice that about ourselves. If your family came from poverty consciousness is going to be in the lineage and how your family raised you. So we have to become aware of these things. If there was abuse, that consciousness is there. These are consciousnesses. So these are like thought patterns, their belief structures, and their systems. And they're passed on, but they're not you. They're not your family. So a lot of the things that we think are like your family's unique quirks are actually consciousnesses that likely were societal from there. That's why you're like, oh my God, all Cambodian families do this or Guatemalan families do that. It's, well, why do they all do that? Likely there was some sort of trauma that happened that made them all become like that. So if they're all really frugal, let's ask why they became frugal. If, the men aren't involved in raising the children, let's start to ask why and start to get really curious about your lineage, because these are things that until we address, we will pass on. Even if you hate that thing about them, it's within you. And that brings me to my next point. It started to show me deeper things about Islam and, that is the religion that technically, my family is Muslim. Technically, I am Muslim. I don't practice it. And it just really showed me the consciousness of religion. Again, the religion of Iran is that, but these are major Abrahamic religions, and they all have a consciousness of we know best and you must follow. If not, you are screwed. Period. That's how religions tend to work. Abrahamic ones, at least. So it started to show me that. And it really started to show me how this consciousness of religion and all of the war that it has caused. I mean, we are seeing it happen right now. Most wars are caused because of religion. People are killing each other because the version of God that they agree, they even agree in the same God, but the way to communicate with that God is different. So I'm willing to kill you for it. How did we get here? So it started to really show me how this perception of my way is the way and I know best and my beliefs are right is literally the reason why children are having to grow up seeing their friends be killed, not knowing if they're going to be killed. Why parents have to hold dead children in their arms is because we think God should be prayed to in different ways. Like, I can't even fathom it. And as a child of war refugees, I would say even I've seen it and I'm still like, how is this still happening? Like, how is this still happening? And even while it's happening, we're like, oh, well, what about that side? And what about that side? Like, children are being killed. Children are being killed because you think God should be prayed to on your knees over here and reading this book. And you think the same God, you both agree, but this God needs to be in this kind of thing. And your text is a little bit different, even though it's based on the exact same scripts. Shalom, salam. Semites, same culture. This illusion is the destruction of humanity. This illusion of my way is the right way and I know best. And I'm here to save you. And if you don't want to be saved, I'm going to kill you. That's the consciousness we are seeing played out in the masses right now. I think you picked up on the situation. The fact that it has gotten this big in the world shows it is extremely prevalent within us. So it started to show me war consciousness, religious consciousness, and how it even exists within me, how it even exists within you. Have you ever sided up with someone to talk about someone else? Have you ever rolled your eyes? Someone's not further along on their spiritual journey. Have you ever tried to get them to understand your way? If only they just did the breath work. If only they just knew their past lives. If only they just, the thing that you do. Because you know best. Because I know best. But the thing is, instead of religion, we're just spiritual. So it really showed me spiritual narcissism. And this same thing that we hate about the world, we still do it. We still do it. We just do it in a different way. And it showed me how related that is to narcissism. How me thinking that, well, you guys are just stuck in 3D and you guys need to awaken and can't you see it's this and it's that and you need to go on a spiritual journey and you need to heal and you need to know your astrology and your past lives and your ancestors and you need to get more crystals and you need to go vegan and you need to this and you need to that. That's the same energy that the colonizers came to South America and killed off the indigenous people, made it illegal to do any form of their natural medicine, would crucify them at the stake even today in many parts of Central America. Because they said, well, our way is the right way. You're not a Christian, you're barbaric. That's the exact same consciousness that we are having by saying our spiritual way is the right way. So I had to look within myself, the parts of me that are a spiritual narcissist, the parts of me that think I know better than someone, the parts of me that think, well, if only everyone just believed what I believed, the world would be a better place. It's the exact same consciousness of the people who are fighting these wars, that are creating these orphans. It's the same, not that we're doing that, but it's the same consciousness. And our consciousness within us is what creates echo chambers into reality. War will continue to exist until this consciousness is within us. Because what is played out in the collective field is just a representation of what is happening in the micro. What is in the macro is a reflection of the micro. If I am militant with everyone around me, I'm right, you're wrong, boundaries, all this individualism we're so fucking obsessed with in our culture. Boundary this, boundary that, you can't talk to me this week, you can't do blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. India and Pakistan, this is my border. No, this is my border. Okay, every single day, we're going to put all this military money to dance on the border so I can remind you that this is my side of the border. I'm going to remind you this is my side of the border. We're going to do this whole intricate dance every single day and almost kill each other by the day. God forbid you pass 1 inch of my border. Oh, wait, we were the same country until British rule? We were the same Hindustan. We were the same country until divide and conquer. Until some European people who didn't know anything about our culture or background or the ways that Hindus and Muslims have lived together side by side, along with Sikhs and all of the other Jains and all the different religions that are there that they didn't even know existed. Oh, interesting. So this other group of people came in, stole all our jewelry, put it on the fucking British crown, took all our artifacts, put it in the British Museum. We don't have access to them. Took one little part of Hinduism that was not even the main part of it, the caste system, made it this gigantic thing. So we all control one another. Oh, now you're a Brahmin. Okay, so you're here. You are in front of these warrior people, and now you're in front of these merchant people. But don't go to the untouchables. They are at the very bottom. They are untouchable. Ugh, can't touch them. They need 10,000 lives until they can repay their karma to like maybe be touchable. I'm paraphrasing right here. I lived in India for 2 years, so trust me, I know this. I'm just trying to keep it simple for you guys. There's lots out there for you. I'm just illustrating the consciousness of it. This other system, this other thought process came in, this thought process of war consciousness, of individualism, of narcissism, of reaping, of taking, came in to an area where people were living peacefully for thousands of years, put their differences, highlighted them, and now they have spent the past 100+ years putting all their energy towards fighting each other when they were never enemies. How are we doing that in our own lives? How are we, even as the spiritual community, fighting each other on Instagram? Fighting each other nonstop. Oh, you didn't post enough about this. Oh, you posted about it, but it was too late. Oh, you posted about it, but I didn't like what you said. How dare you post about it? Unfollowing, refollowing, no following, follow, vote with your follows. Last I checked, your favorite spiritual influencer was not the one dropping bombs. Last I checked, the people dropping bombs was not watching their Instagram stories. Last I checked, them sharing or not sharing is not going to be the thing that makes this war happen or not. But do you know what actually makes this war continue to happen? That consciousness. That consciousness, which is coming from a pure place. It's coming from a pure place of, I really care. I'm fired up, but I'm helpless. I'm helpless because I don't know what to do. And I feel really sad. And I am seeing the most graphic images that no human should see. And it's happening on another side of the world. I don't even really know about that part of the world. And I feel like I have no platform. They have a platform. So maybe if they do something and say something, something will happen. I don't have access to the people who are making this happen, but I can keep commenting on this person's Instagram and like maybe it will make its way to the top. That's the consciousness. It's coming from a beautiful intention place. But then that person, you know, Mindful Melissa is like, I'm sorry, if you're Mindful Melissa, I just keep using this name, but Mindful Melissa is like, hey, I was chronically depressed, suicidal, discovered meditation. I'm sharing meditation with people. People are expecting me to be the geopolitical commentator on Gaza, but last year I was supposed to be the one on Ukraine and the year before that on Black Lives. And then between that, I was supposed to know about what's happening in Iran and don't worry about the burning of the Amazon and also the earthquake that happened in Mexico. But you can't forget about the genocide in Uganda, but you cannot not mention Congo at the same time. And don't forget about the diamond industry. And we can't forget about, you know, the slavery that's still taking place in Cambodia, or what about the workers' rights in Bangladesh? But, you know, we need to talk about the indigenous rights movement in Bolivia. And you're right. Mindful Melissa is the perfect commentator on all of these subject matters in equal amounts. That's who we come to for these things, right?
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. So a lot of us compare ourselves to others, and I feel social media is a huge part of it. So let's say you're having a crappy day, you're sitting on the couch and you open up your app and you see someone having the best day of their life. They're in Hawaii, it's their birthday, the love of their life just proposed to them. And then you're caught up in wishing your life looked like someone else's. Well, like the old adage says, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's so easy to envy other people's lives. But the truth is, social media is a highlight reel, and you're only seeing one moment, not hearing the conversation that happened behind that screen, before, after, and all the things that led up to it. So therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, I highly recommend giving BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch them at any time for no additional charge. So stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Sahara to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Sahara. You can find that link in the show notes. Because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to make a quick assumption about you. Your friends come to you for advice. Whenever you're at a party, someone corners you at the side of the snack table and starts telling you all of their childhood traumas. And you actually love diving deep into spiritual topics, and you have a really good way of communicating with people. So the best way to actually create a career doing this is through coaching. But I know a lot of people, they're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what type of coach I would be. So I've created a quick, easy quiz to discover your unique coaching style. So there are 3 categories: the intuitive, transformational, or empathetic coach. So the intuitive one really works with your intuition. You're able to receive downloads. You just have insights about people. The transformational one has more of that fire energy. You love to keep it real and help people go through the deepest phoenix rising from the ashes moments in their lives. And the empathetic coach really loves to listen, hold space. They're very grounded, nurturing. So if you're curious which type you are, you can try my free quiz at quiz.highestselfinstitute.com. Again, that's quiz.highestselfinstitute.com, which is my school that certifies spiritual life coaches. And you can find that link in the show notes. I'm super excited to see what type of coach you are, because I'm gonna hire you one day. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen.
Mindful Melissa was just trying to share what helped her depression. And all these comments are definitely not helping. She's just a human. She can't know. Even a politician, especially the politicians, don't know. Even someone who's devoted their lives to studying political science cannot be an expert in all of those subjects. Cannot. Because it's impossible to. Because one of these topics, you can devote your entire life to studying the history, the wars, the dates, the movements that have happened, the sub-movements that have happened, on top of all of the, delusions and fake news and all of the things. You could spend your whole life on the Congo. You could spend your whole life on Gaza. You could spend your whole life on Ukraine and still not know everything. So how are we expecting a stranger who, by the way, is not presenting themselves as being a geopolitical expert to be the subject matter and the voice for all the things, and mind you, the same voice that you want them to be? I'm bringing this up because this is war consciousness. The war consciousness is, you got to save me. Okay, what else happens in a war? There's the military, the people at front. Now you guys got to save me. I feel helpless. So you got to do something because I'm helpless. You can have a platform too. You can share your voice too. You can talk about the things that matter in the way that you want to talk about them right now. You don't have to beg and cancel and follow, unfollow and refollow and make some stories about Mindful Melissa. Mindful Melissa is just a human being like you. She just started sharing about her journey. You can start just sharing about this if you want. It's just, we're waiting for someone to save us. And that's, again, this war consciousness. And on a deeper, it's this existential thing that, we're waiting for someone to save us from ourselves. We're waiting for someone to save us from the confusion that we feel, the hurt that we feel, the pain that we feel, the sorrow that we feel. It hurts so fucking much to see what's happening in the world, and I don't want to feel it anymore. So if I put all my energy into getting you to talk about it, then maybe I won't feel it anymore. And now they're talking about it, but for some reason I'm still feeling, and if anything, I'm feeling worse. Because now everywhere I go, I'm just reminded of it again and again and again. And it just seems like the world just keeps getting worse. And every time I open Instagram, it's like horrifying. I feel like it's like trigger warning after trigger warning, and the world just keeps getting worse. And I thought what happened there was better, but now it's this. And apparently that's still going on too. And I can't. How am I going to put anything out in the world when it's just constant war and chaos and poverty and suffering? Like, I might as well just give up right now. Like, what's the point of me even sharing my gifts? What's the point of me even like putting out something of beauty? Who am I? Why would I put out something of beauty when people are suffering? Are you following along? Are you catching this? When the Titanic was sinking, everyone took their positions. And do you know one of the most potent ones are? The only one I actually remember from the movie? It was the two guys that started to play the violin. The Titanic was sinking. Everyone was going to die. Some people may die later in life through a lifeboat. Some people may die right now. That's life. We're all going to die. But we can choose to make the moments a little bit more beautiful. We can choose to be those brave souls that decide to play music, because the Titanic is sinking. Just in case you didn't know, we all got a death sentence here. We're all going out the same way. And instead of that scaring us, to me, that's my greatest muse. My greatest muse is the fact that this is so fucking temporary. One day I'm going to be gone. And I don't know if there's going to be Spotify. I don't even know if anyone's going to listen to these podcasts. I don't even know if 3 years people will listen to these podcasts. You know, we'll have these iPhones. I'm sure in the next 100 years we won't. And all the stuff we're putting on the internet, it's all so important. You know, it's going to be gone. Maybe the ancient Egyptians had iPhones, but they were blown away in the dust. And all we have left are the pyramids. I'm actually curious what's going to make it 2,000 years from now. Highly doubt Instagram is. Maybe, just maybe, we'll have history books, at least in 100 years, that talked about some of these. There was an election that happened. Whoa, the election of 2020. Whoa, there was a thing called COVID. Whoa, crazy. Apparently, lots went on then. Crazy times. Oh, and then there was another catastrophic thing, and another catastrophic thing, and another. Wow, must have been such a terrible life back then. Until we go way into the future, then they're going to be romanticizing us. Oh, I am a Lemurian American soul. Yes, I channel the Pleiadian galaxies and share them on Instagram. That is my soul fam. You know, I think we have to get further away from something to start to romanticize it. So at best, we'll have a history book. After that, best maybe will be a romanticized ancient civilization. And after that, we'll be forgotten. Do you know your great-grandparents' names? Do you know the parents of your grandparents? What are their names? Most of us don't. Those were the people who raised your grandparents. You don't even know their name. Do you see how quickly we get forgotten? We make such a big deal of all of these things. I hope my great grandkids know my name, at least. Maybe a little bit about me. I mean, that's probably the most of who's going to remember you. And this is a really humbling realization. When we realize that we are just life, giving life back to life itself. We are a season. We walk up that stage. You know, imagine life is this beautiful center Broadway stage. We walk up those stairs, getting ready, practicing our lines, putting the costume on. And then we walk out on stage. We're walking. We're center stage. We're in our 30s. We're in our 40s. We are full living it, but we don't even realize it. And then we start to move towards 50s, 60s, 70s, and we're kind of off the center of the stage. We're moving out to stage left, and we're in our 80s and 90s and hoping that someone visits us and someone holds our hand when we pass until we're gone. And that's life. It's a moment. It's a dance. You come, you do the dance, you play as big as you can, you're scared, you're second guessing yourself, you're not sure if if you're doing it right. We're all like waiting for someone. It really showed me like we're all like little kids still, like waiting for someone to tell us like, you're doing it right. You got it. When you were a little kid, you were like trying something new, you're like trying biking, you like looked up, you're like, am I doing it right? We're all like living life like that still today. We're like wondering, is this how it's supposed to be done? But the most humbling thing is, yes, there's a lot of change, but I can guarantee your parents felt like that too. I can guarantee you they felt the same way when they held you in their arms and they're like, am I doing this right? It doesn't come with a guidebook, though there's lots of books out there, but none can ever really guide you. We're life giving back to life itself. It's all a cycle. It's all a season. The problems that you have right now that you are so burdened about, one day you're not even going to remember. You're not even going to remember this problem. You're going to look back. If you write a diary, I would say write some physical diaries because we don't even know what will be seen in the future. But like, when you go back, you can look at your notes app from like even 3 years ago, you're like, oh my God, I can't even remember thinking this. Like, it's so different than how I think now. Even me last year, I'm like, whoa, like, how did I, see the world in that way? I've changed so much. So that's everything has seasons. And when you're in a season, it feels like it's forever. But can you go back and think about like that season of like COVID, how different it was? That season of, 2017, that season of 2012, that season of 2010, that season of 1995, like how different all of these seasons in your life were, let alone all the micro seasons between. Like life is so seasonal and it moves and it shifts. And we only recognize it looking back, but you're in it. So this problem that you have that's so big in your mind, one day you're actually going to like wish you had that problem. So it showed me like my big problem, I'll be honest with you, was feeling alone. Because I was in a relationship, I was in a 4-year relationship, and then I was in a 7-year relationship. We were married, and then I found out he was cheating on me and sent me through a very, very big dark night of the soul. And I never like got to fall out of love and like choose to be on my own. It was like married to like not like instantly. I mean, I knew the moment that I found that out, the marriage was done, but it was still really sudden. And it was like a nice relationship. So it wasn't like we were toxic and fighting and I could see it coming and I finally got out. It wasn't that at all. And so it was really challenging for me because I didn't sign up for being single. I didn't like, I'm going to get the courage and do it. And now I'm ready for it. It was like, I was just married and I just saw the rest of my life like that. And then all of a sudden, God was just like, and now you're not, you're in a new reality. And so it was really like, felt like my arm was chopped off. That's why I really relate to widows. It's like when you, or people who've experienced infidelity as well, or something sudden that changed in your relationship, like them getting ill, these deaths. It's like, just like that, life changes. And so for me, it like felt like my arm was chopped off. Like I didn't even know how to be in the world as a single person, And of course I spent a lot of time alone. I traveled alone, but like being like single is like very different, of just like, I'm just like alone here. And like, if I die, like no one will find out for days, it's so different. And I noticed that when that feeling of like loneliness would come up, I would do anything I could to like make it go away, eat chocolate, go on Instagram, maybe go on a dating app, like something to get me out of this aloneness. My loneliness is killing me, and it really be like that. And they say she's so lucky. She's a star, but she cries, cries, cries in her lonely heart, thinking, if there's nothing missing in my life, then why do these tears come at night? For real, I could relate to that one. And so I really sat with this, like, what does it mean to be alone? And that has been a huge pondering of mine for the past year and a half. Unlike everything in life, I know if there's something we're resistant to, we got to go into it. So I moved by myself to the mountains, and I spent basically all my time alone, you know? And when I would feel that loneliness come up, I would just go into it and really feel like, what does it feel like? What's underneath it? And how does it move? And that's how my Triple E method, Emotion Body Express, came to be. So with the medicine of the Huachuma, I really was noticing how, and I talked about this in the past episode, which I'll link below, that most of us get into relationships where we're not met because we feel that this is the best we're going to get. We're not met, so it's the best we're going to get. So we gaslight ourselves into thinking that this is enough. And we only show the parts of ourselves that we feel will secure and maintain the relationship. But then we inherently feel lonely even within the relationship. And but we would rather be lonely in the relationship because at least there's a human there than be alone. So I started to really go into, like, what does it mean to be totally alone? Like, to really feel that at its core, like imagining myself like I am alone forever. And it took me into myself dying and just like feeling myself just like dead, like in the earth, like I no longer exist. But I started to feel like this immense like love and support. Like I'm even in my aloneness, I'm held by the earth. So then it started to take me to like, what does it feel like to be like alone, like in life, like living alone? What would a life just like me living in a hut, like deep in the mountains with no human interaction? Like, what would that mean? How would I feel? And I realized, like, looking into those mountains, that we're so afraid of feeling alone. But when we actually surrender into it, of like fully feeling alone, we realize that it's actually an illusion. And there's actually no such thing as being alone, because when you are alone, you realize that you are all one. You realize you're never actually alone because you're always with life. You're always with nature. You're always with the spirit of the trees. You're always with the liveliness of the grass. You're always with the hum of the hummingbirds and the flying of the crows. You're actually never alone. So we are so afraid of feeling alone, but if we actually go into being alone, we realize it doesn't exist. That's the illusion. We're running away from this feeling that's not even real. It's our fear of feeling it. So like, for example, you know when you got a Band-Aid on and you got some hair on your arms, you're so afraid of ripping off the Band-Aid. You're like, it's going to hurt. I can't. You're like freaking yourself out. And then you rip it off and like, wasn't that bad? That's exactly what we're doing. We do that with everything in life. You're getting waxed. Oh my God, I'm scared. It's 2 seconds later, it's got a blood test, whatever the thing is. It's our anticipation of feeling that thing that is way worse than actually feeling it. And if anything, actually feeling it can actually give you feelings of bliss and joy when you go into it. Like when you actually, like with a heartbreak, you're like, oh my God, like everyone's so scared of getting their heart broken. Like we're all walking around with fucking armor on our hearts. We're like, I can't believe you. I can't trust you. I can't listen to a word you say. You're going to break my heart. Don diggity. But let's just say your heart broke. When you actually feel it, it's like, whoa, I'm alive. Like I feel love. Like, how beautiful that I opened my heart to feel love. Like, those are the moments that we feel alive. Like, if you feel heartbreak, I just want to congratulate you and acknowledge you for letting yourself love. Because you can't feel heartbreak without feeling love. People who've never loved never feel heartbreak. So if your heart is broken, congratulations, honey, you are loving. And if your heart is breaking every day for what's happening in the world right now, congratulations, you are alive. You are alive. So we're so afraid of feeling these things, but instead we just go into them. We realize there's nowhere to run from or hide, but that thing is actually just peace. Like, being alone is actually just being at peace with yourself. And most of us are not at peace with ourselves. When we are alone, what happens is it brings up what was already there, but we were just hiding and masking and distracting. So if you say, every time I'm alone, I want to cry, well, that means you got some tears to cry. And those tears are going to build up in that well until you manifest someone to make you cry for a very long time. But the tears need to be felt. And what I have found is sometimes we do actually call in these heartbreaks for us to feel all of the suppressed feelings that we had not allowed ourselves to feel our whole childhood. So I noticed in my heartbreak, like after I would be like crying, I'm like, I'm not even like sad about the situation anymore. Like, why am I still crying? Tell me, why am I still crying? The Keisha Cole song. No, Jasmine Sullivan. I bust the windows at your car. Good one. But why am I still crying? Well, it's because you've opened up the well of tears. Finally, you are allowing yourself to cry. So all of the tears from all the time that you were a kid and you sucked it up and you were told to not to be emotional and you had to bite your lip when you were bullied and pretend it was all fine, or you didn't get invited to that hangout, or your mom said something, or you watched your parents fight, and all those times that you wanted to cry and you held it in, it's like finally like some of those backlog of tears are able to come out. And so the reason why I believe heartbreak is such a gift, whether it's romantically and friendshiply, it allows you to feel what was underneath the surface of it all. It's like a little simmering teapot. I lift up the lid and some of the steam can come out. And so if there's been a lot of steam, it's going to need more time to come out. But one day, I guarantee you, I pinky promise you this one. One day, you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to cry anymore. And one day you might go the whole day and you won't cry. And then you might have like 2 in a row. And then after that, like a whole week. And then after that, like days that this whole situation doesn't even come across your mind. That thing, you won't even think about it. You're going to notice like that first time you're like, whoa, I didn't even think about it yesterday. Like, I want to share with you, last year, I was really afraid of my wedding anniversary. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so sad. Like, how am I going to get through it? I was like really anticipating the fear of my wedding anniversary. And, you know, it was my first one single. And, you know, on that day, I knew I needed to do like a ritual. And I met with my friend, Ben Decker. He's like such a witch. And we did this like full like release ceremony. And it was really emotional and really beautiful. And it's what I needed that first year. And so I thought about it this year of like, wow, I feel so different. I wonder what it's going to be like. And then I realized this year, the day I thought was my wedding anniversary was a different day. And I like completely missed the anniversary. Like, I thought it was June 4th for some reason. That's not even the right day. And June 2nd, which was the day, it was just like a regular day in my life. And so I just want to share with you a difference a year would make. Like last year, June 2nd was like, June 2nd, the day that like I'm going to cry into the abyss forever. And this year I just forgot the date, which shows like I went into it. I fully cried and grieved, and y'all been listening to this podcast. You heard me talk about it a lot. You should see what I normally talk like. Whoo. I went in, I used it as my experience to feel all of the sadness and tears and grief that I never let myself. Like, a lot of people experience heartbreak, but not everyone takes it as the opportunity it is to do all the deep shadow work that you would have never done in your life. which brought me into this medicine path, which I'm so grateful for. And to the point that my life is so full of my new music that I'm creating. I launched an album. I'm making more music and this podcast and making a whole new institute, High Self Institute, and launching like dozens of courses and making a music festival and like so many other things in my life that it's like that thing no longer has a hold of me anymore. It's just not in my field. It was a season that felt like forever, but this too shall pass. And more seasons come and they pass too. So I share this because like whatever that thing is right now that you're like really like holding on to, that's really hard, that's like always on your mind, like zoom out for a moment and just think about, what really supported me and what the medicine brought me to is like myself as a grandmother. And what's crazy was I didn't even go into the ceremonies at all thinking about children. If anything, I thought I probably am not going to have kids because I never felt that like ping, I always wanted to have kids until my marriage. And then in that, I was like, I'm actually not sure if I want to have kids. And it kind of scared me, I was like, is it going to change? But I just never felt that ping. Now I can see why I was not meant to have children with that person. And I'm grateful that I didn't have that ping because who you have children with is who you're creating a lineage with. It's who you are creating a unique hybrid of humans with. And it's a math and it's a science. And it really showed me how souls like choose like the right mom and the right dad for them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're together forever or like the best relationship match at all. I mean, hello, our parents, but there's a science to it. And if you are in a relationship, and again, everyone's path is different, but a lot of times what I've seen is, you think you're supposed to have a baby, but you don't want to have one with that person. And then underneath it all, there was an issue in the relationship. And then you're like, oh, I can see now why intuitively I felt I was not meant to have a baby with this person. So it really took me deep into the mother, my relationship with my mother, which I went into in my ayahuasca journey, my relationship to the mother of earth. And, I'm such a lover girl. Like I love love. I love romance, like all matters of the heart. That's what this podcast is about. But it showed me it's like that level of unconditional love that you so want to experience in this lifetime, that you are craving, that you are calling in, that you are yearning for, that is capable, all this love that you want to pour in unconditionally is the love of a mother. And it introduced me to my future children. And that was like the most emotional thing I've ever experienced in my life. I can't even talk about it without crying, so I'm not going to get fully into it and just let it unfold as it does. And I've never felt such love in my life. And it showed me my children there with me in those fields. And it was a boy and a girl, and just like seeing the boy with his stick and he was like running around and he was so like adventurous, and the girl being like, "Mommy, will you braid my hair?" And her long black hair, and just this love that I felt for her. And I was the mountain. I was the mountain that they experienced life through. And the mother is God. She is God creating life for these other beings. It literally is life creating life back for life itself. And witnessing my children, even in this energetic field, like watch a butterfly was like me watching a butterfly for the first time. And if you're a mom and you're listening to this, I'm sure you really know this, but it's like watching life again for the first time, but it means even more watching it through the eyes of your children. Because you're so much more aware of the preciousness of that moment. Because when you're a kid and you see the butterfly, you're like, oh, a butterfly. But when you're a mother and you see your child watching the butterfly, you know how significant that moment is. And just the love that I felt for these children. like I would give my life for them. And I really believe that that is, for me, the meaning of life. To love so deeply. And so often we're like craving that like unconditional like love, like from a romantic partner. And we're like looking for this like perfect love. And it really showed me it's like romantic human adult love is like two flawed humans meeting each other doing the best that they can. But a mother's love, it's not the kid doesn't have to do the best they can. The kid doesn't have to do anything. The kid doesn't even need to breathe for that love. That is true love. And so it completely shifted me, the way that I see myself, the way that I see the world. Like, again, I don't know what my life will bring. I'm still single. I'm very far from that reality right now. But it's interesting because like my first time even sitting in different ceremonies, it always showed me my children. I was always like, and especially me as a grandmother, and I was always like, I don't really know. And after feeling this, it shifted the way that I walk, the way that I show up, and the way that I create. And I love everything that I do. And my life is so full. And I love sharing on this podcast and my students. And I actually feel like I already am a mother for so many. I'm a mother that teaches and brings wisdom and shares. And I'm even like a grandmother sharing these stories. And I can just feel myself really stepping into that role within myself of not waiting for a man to make me see myself as a mother, as if a man can do that for you, but rather a mother is awakened within. It's a consciousness within. And doesn't necessarily mean for everyone. Trust me, I did not want to have kids. Like I was just like, I don't know, there's a lot of liabilities there. But then experiencing that level of love and then realizing like what a deeply nurturing person I am. And, I have all this nurturing, you guys know me. I breed butterflies. I'm like always with the animals. I'm so deep in my friendships. Like I love to love. But it showed me that for some reason, I thought, or I created a belief structure that being a mother meant sacrificing your whole life because that's what I had seen. So I thought being a mother, like having your own children, meant you have to sacrifice your purpose, your sense of self, your livelihood, your freedom, all of these things, and like no longer exist. And then on top of that, you're going to have a rocky relationship because that's what I had seen happen after people have kids. And it's just a bunch of suffering. And then so much can go wrong with your kids. And why would I put myself through that? And again, and that's a perspective, and there are layers of potential truth in that too. But it's all the story that we tell ourselves, It's like I could tell my story. Well, having friends, they all betray you and they all backstab you and everyone's just in it for themselves. Well, could potentially be true too, but do I want to tell myself that story? So it really took me into how I had seen the woman in my family, again, a woman from Iran, where of course they could not work. Of course, like my grandmother was a child bride, 11 years old. So I still subconsciously felt like me being a mom is like, I have to become like a child bride and like give up my whole life and my body to these children as if I don't exist anymore. Especially because in Middle Eastern culture, a woman's name is daughter of her father. And then when she gets married, it's wife of her husband. And then when she has a son, it's mother of her son. So she doesn't even have her own name. Her name is just a relationship with the man in her life. So there is a lot of patriarchy in the culture. And so I saw it and I felt it. And I saw that the mothers were the ones who had to carry all the emotional burden and grunt and were not respected and did not have freedom of choice. And they were the one that gave and gave more than anyone. So I was like, I'm not going to be that. I want to have choice. I want to have purpose. I want to share my gifts. I want to have freedom. So that means then don't be a mother. So I had these like ties crossed you know? And that's the beauty of doing deep consciousness healing work, whether it's with medicine or just contemplation. It shows you like you take one thing and something else, you tied them together, but it's not necessarily true. So I started to think of different women I knew, or even women in my own family that had lives and were mothers. Like my aunt, for example, she, works at a rehab, and she has two kids who, now one of them's going off to college. And I was like, oh wow, like, there's an example there. And I have many friends who, of course, it's never perfect and there's always a balance, there's always a struggle. And, but that's life. Like life is difficult. Like no one ever has it perfect, but it's possible. And it's just a matter of like, what do you want to feel? Like if the most important thing for you is like freedom to travel and do whatever you want, then like, yeah, probably having kids is not the best path for you. I mean, though you could. People do the world schooling thing and it does happen. But for me, I know that the purpose of my life is love. And so it's like, so why would you hold yourself back from the greatest gift of love? And deep down inside, it was because I was afraid of being a single mom. I was afraid of something going wrong. I was all of the fears. And ultimately, I believe if something is meant to happen in your life, that's part of your life plan. And there's nothing that you can actually do to prevent it. So if my life plan is to be a single mom, then that's my life's plan, or for a period of time, that's my life's plan. It's not what I want, not what I'm calling in at all. But instead of being in like, I can't have kids, even if I want kids, because what if I become a single mom, is like, instead of following what's alive for you, you're following your fears. So it really showed me like all of the fears and the beliefs and the stories I had wrapped around it. And ultimately, I know that whenever I meet this person, I will know it's someone that I want to create a lineage with. And that's my invitation for you is, if this resonates and if you do want to have children or you're thinking about having children or you want to just create with someone, you want to create legacy with someone, which I believe ultimately is the purpose of relationships. It's who do I want to create life with? You are breathing life in a relationship. You are literally creating not just children, but businesses, art, conversation. Who do you want to create life with? What vibrational frequencies would you like to swirl together? Because that is what relationship really is. And life is relationship. That is really the medicine of San Pedro. It shows us that life is all relationship. And when we have disgruntled relationships in our lives, they really tap away at our energy. They create these energetic blocks in our field. So if we're like in a fight with our mom, that's going to show up in how we interact with every single person. If we are in a situation having a friendship breakup, that's going to show up how we feel. A fight with our partner, you felt it before. You have a fight with your partner, you're off that whole day. So this is why coming back into right relations is so important. And that was the key word really of the Huachuma. By the way, the whole thing was all in poetry to me. This is how my consciousness speaks. It was all like call and response, poetry, everything was rhyming. But the word right relation kept coming up. And it's like, how can we be in right relation with everyone in our lives? And right relation doesn't mean they have to be in our lives. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to talk every day. It doesn't even mean you got to talk at all. But how can I restore the story I am telling and the experience of my interaction with that person in a way that brings me peace? So let's say you and your father never see eye to eye. Your father's narcissistic. He was not there for you. If you're holding on to the energy of anger towards your father, that is going to show up in your relationship with all men. I know it sucks and it feels unfair. But it is. And sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. Sometimes you got to let yourself feel all the anger and all the muck until you can come into genuinely just seeing them as the human that they are, that was doing the best that they could, that lost their way sometimes. And to see them, again, put on those lens of love, to see them through the eyes of love and restoring right relations and having compassion. And then when you have compassion, you see someone's humanity and you see their intentions, which is mostly love. You can't help but to love. and you restore right relations. And maybe it's just energetically within yourself. Maybe it's reaching out to them. Maybe it's a conversation. So it really brought me into like everyone in my life that I interact with and what does restoring right relations mean? And it really showed me how this like guise of individualism in our culture is really what's making us so unhappy. That we're so like my way, this is how I want it, Amazon Prime, order my life now, like that consciousness. And that's why like when there's a situation with a friend, we just cut them off. Family said this thing, don't talk to them. Block, block, block. And I'm a fan of using block sometimes, but like with a stranger. Or maybe you got to like take some steps away for a period of time. Sometimes you do got to take some steps away from family to restore right relations. But I do believe we are meant to be in relationship with our family, that they are our family for a reason. And those triggers and those things that upset us, that is our personal dharma and our personal work to move through. And it does take many, many years and many, many layers, but that's the work. And that's really the gift. So if there is, some stuff happening in your family, intergenerationally, ancestral healing, I would definitely recommend San Pedro for you because that is the gift of this plant. It really allows you to see broad picture. What are the patterns that have happened in your family? Why people are the way that they are and restoring right relations with them. Immediately after I reached out to my mom, my dad, my aunt, my cousin, like everyone in my family, my close friends. And, it really showed me exactly what I was meant to share with them. And they were crying, hearing the channeled messages that I had for them and the ways that I saw them in ways that I never have before. And just me showing up from a place of just deep love and gratitude just brought down their guards. And it's like entirely new relationships with everyone in my family and all of my friends, just seeing them with love. And yeah, like there's still like sticky things, but I would say like I've never experienced such incredible relationship with my mother, my father, my brother, my friends, my aunt, my cousin, like everyone in my life. I've never experienced this level of like we're all like so close and I deeply love them and I'm so grateful for them and I'm like I can't wait to spend time with them. And that was so not me before. I was like, "Oh God, I really don't want to do Thanksgiving." And now I'm like, "Dad, can we go on a trip together, you and I?" And that's the power of doing that. And my dad didn't have to change a thing. It's me and my consciousness being able to really see him, not from the hurt, wounded girl in me that felt like I didn't get what I needed from you, but like to truly see him from the eyes of love. And that makes him show up to me with love. And it has really changed him because how you talk to someone changes how they respond to you. And it's an entirely new relationship. And it's such a gift. And like, just that has been the greatest blessing of my life that I get to spend the next X years of my parents' life loving them rather than feeling angry at them, which hurts them and hurts me. So I definitely recommend San Pedro for this work. And I will be bringing on Daniela, whose retreat I went on the podcast. She's so amazing. I will link her website below as well. So please share with me any questions you have. I would really love to keep talking about ancestral healing and wisdom and shadow work and all of these things. This is like the true spiritual path. So please let me know any specific questions you have. I'm going to be doing a lot more solo casts, definitely something the medicine guided me to do. So please share with me in the iTunes store. It really also helps the podcast get out and reach more people. And as a free gift, I will send you my womb meditation. So all you got to do is leave a review. Let me know what topics you love on the podcast. Take a screenshot of that review before you hit submit and email it over to me at Sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. You can find that email and all the links I mentioned today in the show notes. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. I have a highlight called Peru where I show all of my journeys and the ceremonies and the people there. So you get to like visually watch it. So on my Instagram, I am Sahara Rose. You can look at the Peru highlight and see everything there. And I've been sharing a lot more of my spoken word poetry on Instagram as well. I also create music. I have an album out on Spotify, Apple Music. If you just look up Sahara Rose, you can find my music. It's all lyrics. You feel good about getting stuck in your head with some dope ass beats because we need the combo. You know what I mean? All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe so you can stay updated on future episodes, and I'll see you in the next one.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Swing to let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your